Good morning and welcome to Conversations in Care on the Third Planet Network. So today I have a wonderful guest, Ellen Belk, who is from Keep in Mind, Inc., and we're going to be talking about dementia. As most of you know, it's one of my most favorite topics is to talk about dementia. And as soon as I met Ellen on the phone, I knew that we would be fast friends because we have the very same thoughts in regards to dementia. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Ellen to the show. Hi, Ellen. Thank you for spending, at least it's a cold morning on my end. I don't know about you this morning with us.
Yeah, well, we're in South Carolina, but amazingly, we're not as chilly as the windy city where you are, or near where you are. But yeah, we're cold for us for sure. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. I was wondering if you could maybe start by telling us about your background, because I think it's a really interesting background.
Well, yeah, I do have an interesting resume. I guess many people. It seems very natural to me, but I get a lot of like, wow, whoa. So my life began out of college as a broadcast journalist. So I did what you're now doing for a living myself, but I was on the radio side of it. So I graduated from college with a broadcast journalism degree, and I instantly went to, well, 6 months later, went to work in sports radio. So for 10 years of the beginning part of my career, I covered professional sports all the way from Milwaukee, which is where I'm from originally, to Charlotte, North Carolina, and then I ultimately ended up in New York. Primarily, both in Charlotte and in New York, I had a lot of opportunity. I was the daily beat reporter, if you can imagine it, for the New York Jets football team. And this was back pre-9/11, well, pre-9/11, excuse me. So it was, seems like forever ago, but not a lot of women in the locker room,
Right.
A lot of amazing experiences. I, too, was a college athlete, not in football, but in basketball. So I had an athletic background, which transitioned into an athletic kind of career.
Right.
But then 9/11 happened, and I happened to be a resident of New York City when it happened. At that time, I had been co-hosting a sports talk show in New York City. I literally was living the dream that I thought was the pinnacle for me, which it was at that time. But after 9/11, I left New York. I went back to home base. The whole world was crazy, as you of course know. And I got out of radio at that time, and I landed softly back in my home state of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And that's when I entered healthcare. And I literally went, there is a book in the making, Tammy. I literally went from courtside at Madison Square Garden and inside the New York Jets locker room to within 6 months, I am planning activities for people with Alzheimer's in a skilled nursing facility in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. So that's kind of how and where it all began. It seems like that is the most bizarre transition, but really, truly, as I shared with you when I met you, it really made sense to me because very quickly, once I had this big personality that boded very well for me in broadcasting, it actually worked very well for me in dementia as well. And from there, another career blossomed, and now I sit in front of you as a dementia specialist owning my own company.
You know, my curiosity was piqued because I think how did you even come up with the fact that you wanted to go into healthcare at this point in time? Once after being, in locker rooms with a bunch of football players.
Yeah. Really, truly, and you probably know as well, when you work in broadcasting, now you have to remember, I was a journalist back when journalism still was journalism.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, things are so different now. Everyone that has the option of being a journalist now, but I mean, I actually have a degree in it where I was educated where you had to have 3 sources for every quote that you gave. But when you're in that world, being in that, and it probably is similar still, you can be taken off the air at any point. So really, truly, especially in radio, every day you show up for work and you pray to God that the station hasn't been sold in the overnight and the new owners have come in and said, you're off the air. So and then again, after 9/11, it really, I just had such a heart and head shift
Mhm.
living the jet-setting lifestyle that I had grown very accustomed to, it just seemed so frivolous to me very quickly. Um, and why I made a conscious decision to choose
Mhm.
healthcare. I didn't make a conscious decision to choose Alzheimer's and dementia, but I knew healthcare because it really, truly, Tammy, I was banking on the fact that healthcare wasn't going to go anywhere. And,
Right.
and that was a good bet. I wish I would have placed money on that because, it's job security, unfortunately, but it is job security.
So when you were in Milwaukee, you started out as an activity director, which is another reason I feel a very great kinship to you because I started out in this industry as an activity director as well. And I think there's something to say about people that are in activities because it's a very hands-on, you're very front and center and one-on-one with the people that you're working with. And I think you learn a lot by doing that. And maybe you can tell us I know that you worked as an activity director, but what else did you do within this field before you started your own business?
Sure, and I agree with everything you're saying about the activity director portion of it. I didn't know what I didn't know at that time, which actually boded very, very well for me. I agree with you, and just to have a little bit of a sidebar to kind of bring my current voice into it, I believe, and I work with my clients now, that we really, really need to treat people who are activity professionals in a memory care setting. That needs to be a job growth position because they have such a unique opportunity to touch mentally, physically, socially the people that we serve. So I don't like it that, and I'm very harsh with my clients. Just because somebody gets off the bus in front of your building and they can walk and talk and chew gum at the same time doesn't mean they should automatically get a job within our memory care facility, and especially in activities, because it really is such a crucial part of the business.
Right.
So I started that way. From there, actually, I was the director of an adult day facility in Milwaukee. I was still living in Milwaukee at the time, and that is when I really got the bug for what the potential for this industry was. I am a very, very big believer in adult day services. As you may or may not know, I am now, at this stage of my life, I am a daughter who is also providing caregiving support to a parent with a dementia diagnosis. It happens to be my father, and he still lives with my mom back in Wisconsin, but we utilize adult day in their area. It's great respite for her. It's amazing socialization for him.
Right.
So that's really when I cut my teeth a lot, was when I became a director of adult day, and I knew for sure this is the direction that I wanted to go. This industry felt good and it felt right. I was in charge of then I went to work for the Alexian Brothers Healthcare System, which headquarters are in Chicago, but I worked at one of their CCRCs, their continuing care retirement communities in Milwaukee. And again, I was in charge of bringing Alzheimer's and dementia education and training to our staff, launching new programs. That's really where I created a program we called at the time, and I think they've changed the name now, but it was the Mature Musicians, where in that role I partnered with the Wisconsin Conservatory of Music, and we brought music lessons to our elders at the CCRC who were playing musical instruments for the first time in their life, and we were making the case that you're never too old to learn, and on top of it, more importantly, learning a musical instrument has significant impact on preserving your cognitive, neurons and keeping everything, snapping and firing for longer periods of time. So and then again, the last professional position I held was for a company called Atria Senior Living, and that was my last corporate position. And at that role, I was in charge of 24 memory care communities that spanned over 11 states. So I live in South Carolina, but I would get on a plane and I would go everywhere from Texas to the entire right side of the map. So I had 6 buildings in the state of Texas. I came all the way through Kentucky and Tennessee and all the way up into New Jersey and Delaware. And I basically helped my people to do the work the right way. And then in 2011, I incorporated Keep in Mind, and now I'm doing it on my own.
So why don't you tell us? Tell us exactly what Keep in Mind is. I happened to find you on the internet as I do most people. I can't remember if it was Twitter or Facebook, but there was something very specific that caught my mind. And what specifically caught my mind was your work that you do with athletes, pro athletes as they age. And that's something that we're going to keep to the end and maybe actually even talk a little bit further in another episode because it's such an interesting topic to me. But you've created this wonderful business, Keep in Mind, and I was hoping that you could really share with us what you do.
Well, the philosophy, and as you know, with any small business, we started Keep in Mind because I had invented a product that we call Memory Mag. Mag being M-A-G-C, our kind of quick, hip and trendy way of shortening up magazines. So I created these picture publications for people with dementia, cognitive decline, and we started selling them. And at the time, it was our vision that we would have a subscription, and that, like I could subscribe and my dad would get these magazines every quarter. As a small business who is self-financing, my husband and I, we were able to get the first two editions put up, and eventually our dream will be to have a full subscription. But right now, that's kind of how we're Keeping Mind began. Again, as small business owners, we didn't know. We had this great idea, big dream, and we jumped off into the deep end, and there we were. What ultimately ended up happening, though, is I started to get consulting clients who, because in conjunction with the Memory Mags, which people can still order from my website, I have this philosophy, and how we presented ourselves and positioned ourselves was on holistic dementia care solutions. And what I mean by holistic, I'm not out here peddling supplements or fish oil. What I mean by holistic, and this literally comes from all of my 13 years in the field, in the trenches, laying hands on these people, hundreds and thousands of residents over 14 years. I'm in my 14th year that I have served. And as a reporter in my mind, I'm always a student of every situation I find myself in. So those reporter instincts that work for me in broadcasting absolutely work for me in healthcare. And so Keep in Mind blossomed from just this Memory Mags idea to this idea that I'm going to work with clients who understand that giving people medication to silence them or to stop them from moving after they've been given a dementia diagnosis is not good on any level.
Right.
I'm not saying that medication does not work, but I challenge people to not, if grandma is uncontrollably crying or my husband is nervous and agitated, I challenge you to not go straight to the pharmacological interventions and pop a pill. And so what does that look like? What Keep in Mind believes, and we are based on our holistic philosophy is based on a 4-pillar philosophy, and that is the environment. The environment, the environment, the environment. I cannot tell you how many times it takes me 20 seconds, if not sooner, to assess a situation that is possibly escalating, and I can absolutely pinpoint it to harsh lighting, loud noise, cold temperature, an uncomfortable person who isn't able to articulate that. All of those environmental triggers are absolutely a first line of defense in dementia care. And then the other 3 that all fall under that is how we're communicating. Communication and the lack thereof, and the way that we don't communicate effectively. In what I like to say, I always ask people, do you speak dementia? And people look at me and I'm like, no, really, it's really a language. I speak German. I don't know what other languages you speak, but if you speak dementia, that's half the battle in working successfully with people with cognitive decline. And Tammy, I'm telling you, it is a learned skill, and it's not easy, so it's important, it's crucial. And then on top of it, of course, I'm a big, big believer in the activity component. Once somebody is given the dementia diagnosis, I absolutely challenge people not to let them sit in a corner and curl up and feel sorry for themselves and wait to die, because there is so much living left to do, and we can maintain a robust quality of life by staying engaged through activity. And then, of course, nutrition. Our fourth pillar of our holistic philosophy for keep in mind is are we putting in the good stuff that we need to use with an aging body and an aging body with cognitive decline who desperately needs their nutrients from their food, whole fiber and grains and low cholesterol, low sodium. We need those aging bodies and those compromised bodies with a brain disease to get the best benefit out of the food that they consume.
Absolutely. And you know, Ellen, you hit on the things that are so important, the environment, communication. If we are not communicating in the correct manner with someone with dementia, and, you know, as I sit here and I say this, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but you know, those are the things. You're exactly right. There's things that they cannot communicate to us, such as the lighting's bothering me, it's cold, I'm really cold, or I'm overheating, you know, or you know, I don't like the person sitting next to me. Sometimes those things are not, they just don't have the means to communicate that to us. And we have to be smart enough to, whether it is to put on our police detective hat or, you know, just like you said, learn this new way of communicating, because it's not always the language piece, but how do we communicate with that person with dementia? And I think those are holistically, especially when it comes to dementia, those are some of the key things. And you know, I agree with you also in this, the concept of the activities part or being engaged. I'm starting to see a new person with dementia as I'm doing this show and talking to people. There's two gentlemen that I know that have been diagnosed with two different types of dementia. One with Lewy body, one with early onset Alzheimer's, and both of them are very active in advocacy. And what I'm seeing is that because they're so active doing that, they're really keeping those symptoms at bay for a really long period of time. So, and I think there's a lot for us to learn in situations such as this. Now, I know you talked about memory mags. I'm going to bring this around a little bit. I'll get off my soapbox for a minute.
No, I love your soapbox.
I know there's another thing that you created. I believe you created memory meals as well, and maybe you can share because that kind of goes along with your fourth pillar.
It does, and thank you for asking about that. You and I both know, you know, I have all these grand ideas, and sometimes it definitely, believe me, takes the marketplace a little while to catch up to somebody with vision. And I'm not curing anything necessarily, but you know, people. First of all, people are so terribly afraid to talk about dementia. And as you can see, I don't have a problem with words. And I am feeling like I'm this person that I want to be this, hey, we need to live out loud with dementia. And what I mean by that is it's so critical that we don't hide behind a closed door and wither away. Much like Tammy, as you very well know, I mean, we used to say the C word. We couldn't even pronounce cancer literally in the last decade. And now look at football players on NFL Sunday are wearing pink shoes to bring awareness. I believe that we need to have those types of aggressive movements towards bringing dementia to the forefront, especially when, as we know, 10,000 baby boomers a day since the year 2011 have been turning 65. Unfortunately, no offense to boomers out there, 1 in 8 of you are going to have some form of cognitive decline. So we need to talk about that. So memory meals. So sometimes we have to give our genius away because I believe in it so much. So what memory meals are? It's a little club that we create. People can come onto our website and join memory meals for free. And what you get is every other month I put together. We put a little 5 ingredient or less recipe. You get the recipe, you get me telling you how to do it, the pictures. It's like a little video tutorial, and it's because what I find is that caregivers, especially in the home, like my own mother who's caring for my father, she's literally made every memory meal recipe, and we've been doing this over a year. My mom, Millie, has made every memory meal recipe, and she always emails me to tell me how great Dad loves this, you know, memory meal. I'm very particular with what we put out there. Again, 5 ingredients or less, because we know how critical time is for our caregivers in a home setting. and sometimes they're overwhelmed and they're busy and they reach for the McDonald's or they reach for the
Right.
hot podium TV dinners, and I'm saying, here, let me give you something that is 5 ingredients,
Right.
um, and it can be done quickly. Another thing that I try to do very purposefully with memory meals, not every single recipe, but many of the recipes that we've offered our club members are recipes that can either be eaten by hand, so it's an easy to consume, no utensils necessary, because I believe wholeheartedly in that for our friends with cognitive decline to stay successful for as long as possible. Sometimes we need to be able to give them food that they can consume without utensils as they go through their disease journey. So we always give an adaptive option, whether it's a big bowl with a big spoon or the meal that I've got that's coming out in February that my club members will get is a breakfast option, and you can eat it by hand. No utensils necessary. So that's what our memory meals are. That's something free that we offer because, again, I believe that people need that information.
You know, Ellen, I absolutely love that. And just a quick other question in regards to memory meals. Is this then, because it's simple and has 5 ingredients, is this something that you can engage your loved one with dementia in helping to prepare it?
Oh, certainly. Well, certainly. I mean, again, unless there are some of our recipes at shopping, but absolutely. Let me tell you something. There is nothing that I can't make a dementia-friendly activity. That's a whole other. I need to write a book on that.
Right.
In fact, the interesting thing is, I'm one of my clients. I do monthly trainings for them, and the next training that I will be sending them for this April is what I'm calling 3-minute activities. Really, truly, Tammy, anything, loading the dishwasher to folding laundry to helping prepare a meal, anything can be turned into a purposeful activity. So yes, they can help in the kitchen.
Wonderful. Now, Ellen, there is something that you're launching here really soon. I think it's in March that you might be launching this, or I might be a little bit off. But it's a great concept. It's called Fitness with Friends, and it's you know what? I'm just going to let you talk about it because I think it's such a wonderful thing. So if you could share with us what Fitness with Friends is and when you're going to be launching this.
Sure, we're getting ready. Within the next week, the website, the web page will be live where people will be able to come and register. But here's the deal on Fitness with Friends. It kind of takes me back to, again, it satisfies my 4-pillar belief where we must engage physically to stay healthy longer and keep active. And as you already indicated with your 2 gentlemen, and I have seen it time and time again, and especially even personally with my own father, the more engaged we keep my dad, the more engaged we keep your friends or all of our friends with dementia through anything purposeful, volunteerism, advocacy, where they're speaking out on their own behalf. These are ways that you just have no idea of the far-reaching effect as to how you can slow down the progression of your disease journey, regardless of what kind of dementia you have. So with that idea, and also I've always kept my hand and my feet, like my toe in the water, if you will, with my broadcasting background. I maintain all of my contacts within my media friends. I maintain relationships with people that I knew who were former players. And so it is now at this juncture of keep in mind where I am taking both of my worlds and merging them together. So what Fitness with Friends is, for right now, we are starting with a 6-month launch here in the Charlotte, North and South Carolina area. So it's the Charlotte region of North and South Carolina. So for currently, right now, starting in May, you can start to register in March, but the actual program will kick off in May. And once a month, we will be gathering for fitness, both physical fitness, for cognitive fitness, and holistic health and wellness information for the caregivers. Fitness with Friends, the members that will join are caregiving couples. So it's the person with cognitive decline and their primary caregiver. We want them to both be in this program together. Both people need to stay mentally and physically put together. Both people need the engagement. So that's what Fitness with Friends will be. It is you and your care partner in a room full of other people, in the same situation. You're sharing your journey with others. Now, what we're doing for right now is we're recruiting, if you will, people up to the age of 70 years young who have who have a diagnosis. Their dementia diagnosis is due to chronic traumatic encephalopathy, also known as CTE. Those are the people that have dementia due to repeated head trauma, due to the sports-related injury. That's you're hearing about the CTE with the NFL football players. We have several of them in my marketplace here. They will be involved in this program. The other group that we are identifying that will be part of this initial launch of Fitness with Friends are war combat veterans who are exhibiting post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder also, left unchecked, leads to depression, can lead to depression, can have a higher incidence of stroke, and also, of course, cognitive decline gets packaged into that. I can't wait. Well, sadly, I can't wait for the website to go live because we have a very heartwarming and touching testimonial from an Army veteran who was our first person to sign up, who has had a stroke, and he shares his story on our Fitness with Friends webpage. So I welcome people to keep an eye on the Keep in Mind Inc. website, because when we go live with Fitness with Friends, you'll be able to register there. And then, of course, Fitness with Friends is also looking for people, like you said, with an early onset, early or young onset, which is people under the age of 65 with Alzheimer's, or people who are in the earlier stages of their Alzheimer's journey. The key for Fitness with Friends is you need to kind of be physically able-bodied already.
Right, right.
And that's where we're starting. We're launching this. We want to see how this goes. And fingers crossed, Tammy, if this revolution takes off, I'm taking Fitness with Friends across this country.
Well, you know what, Ellen, I absolutely love this program for a couple of reasons. Because you want both the person with dementia and their primary caregiver to be involved in this. And there's so many benefits to both of them. The physical activity, we don't have to talk about that. We already all know that we should be physically active all the time. But the other piece that I see with this is it gives that caregiver a break, a needed break, and they get to focus on themselves for a little bit of time. Because just like you mentioned, so often when we're caring for someone with dementia, we forget about ourselves. We don't have the time to cook. We don't have the time to exercise. So now we're helping them to get that in. And the other thing to me is that now you're creating for them this great little support group. So you've created all these great things out of coming together, and I don't know how often a week this is going to happen, but coming together to engage in an activity. And I think it's such a great, wonderful thing. And I'm excited that you're also working with some groups that are really sometimes forgotten. So, I can't wait for it to come across the, over to the Windy City, because I think it's something that's very, very needed.
Yeah.
So, Ellen, we are actually getting to that point. Amazingly enough, the 30 minutes has gone by really, really quickly. And I do want to have you come back, because I think it's really important for us to talk about CTE and really get into what that is and why it's so important for us to look at these interventions. So, if you're willing to, I'd love to have you come back.
Hey, girl, please. You don't even have to ask me a second time. Done and done. I look forward to it.
Perfect. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to Conversations in Care here on the Third Planet Network.